In this lesson, we're gonna go through how to create manually an index on a table column, but also on the topic if the optimizer will choose that index to be used or not to be used. So for our example, I'm gonna create a simple table with just 3 columns, the exam ID with a number data type, exam name with a varchar, and exam date with a date data type. So my table is created, and I want to create an index on the exam date column. And the syntax for that is very simple. It's create index, followed by the index name, and recommended naming convention is to use the ix prefix, followed by the on, the table name, and in the parameter field, we're gonna put in the column name. In our example, we are passing only one column, as we are making a single column index. So let's create that index. My index is created. I can also check if it has been created with a query from our previous lesson. So if we check it, indeed we can see that our index ix exam date has been created on the exam history table on the column exam date, right? We can also drop that index with a standard drop statement. So it's drop index followed by the index name. So now if I execute a query which has in the where or in the order by clause of that query, that column which has an index, that index may or not be used on the following conditions. So for example, if I would have a lot of identical values for my exam date, for example, if the table would mainly consist of values of the date 28th of August, that index probably will not be used, and that will be determined by the optimizer. If I'm using the equality comparison, then it's a higher chance that that index will be used. If I use the less than, greater than, and so on, there is a higher chance that that index won't be used. If I use the not equal comparison, then that index definitely will not be used. If I use the like operator, the index will not be used if the first sign is the wildcard. So for example, if my wildcard is the first sign, regardless if the percentage or the underscore, and some text, then the index will not be used. However, if my wildcard is somewhere in the middle or at the end, then that index may be used. If we use function on a column, that will prevent of using standard index. There are also function indexes, but this is out of the scope of this course. And another important point to make on this lesson is the rule of 5. And that is not to use more than 5 indexes for one table. This is just a good practice, so the optimizer will know if to use or not to use those indexes in our queries. As you've seen, creating an index on a column is very simple, especially the single column ones. In the next one, we're going to cover a composite index, and I'll see you over there.